Hello everyone! So, it's a World Book Day collaboration, and believe it or not, this book I've had since childhood, and it's one of my favourite books. My parents bought this for me, I don't know when, but you'll recognise the characters on the actual book. But I love the book more than I do love the film, and I do love the film. So I got Falco, Mr. Goblin printed him. And I just really always wanted to make something related to this book. So let's go play. Right, let's get started. I'm using EcoPore from Apex Resin, and I've got this cool book trinket box mould. My name's Lula, and welcome to NERDGOBLINart. I've made up 300 fluid ounces of this EcoPore resin. Now, I haven't long started trying out this medium, and I have to say I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get this make out of the mould in one piece. I'm not sure why, but you know, it feels good, and we got our fingers and toes crossed. So I'm giving it a good little wiggle. I haven't filled it all the way. I've started learning to make sure that I take my time with it so that I don't end up splatting it all over myself. And as you could see as well, I was making sure that I was pincing the corners and giving it a little jiggle just to encourage the possibility of any bubbles coming up. Now, this EcoPore sets up in around 40 minutes. It's great stuff. So far, so good. I think this is probably the third or fourth time I'm using it, and I've not had a problem. You know, follow the instructions on the packaging and you're good. So I'm just filling up the lids. It's only it's very thin. So I was being very careful of that. And I just want to make sure that I'm pincing the corners. Just like that. Giving them a little squeeze just to make sure that the EcoPore is getting down in there. But to be fair, you can see pretty well into this mould. So that's a good thing. And you can also use silicone tools, which is what I'm doing now. Well, I guess because it's EcoPore, it doesn't really matter if it is silicone, but it's just easier to clean. So as you could see there, I was just dipping it into the corners and then running it around the lip of the lid, just to make sure any bubbles, and to encourage any bubbles up. I'm even tapping under the table as well, because I can't really pick this up and drop it down like you can with some moulds. I did notice a few little lumps towards the end of the pour where I basically hadn't managed to stir it in as well as I could have, but I will use my silicone tool just to make sure it is mixed in. I really I do want to invest in perhaps a small whisk or something like that to use when I am using the EcoPore. I opted as well not to try and add any colours to the pour because I can paint it, and I plan on painting it, and because I'm going to be using my acrylic paints, I know that it's going to get a good coverage. So the collaboration has been set up by Kernick's Creations. That's Nikki and Kirk. They got a fantastic channel and I absolutely love watching them. They're a husband and wife team and they make me smile all the time whenever, you know, great videos and great content. And they're nerds as well. They're book fans. I'm a book fan. And I just really wanted to take part in this one, so I hope you do follow the collaboration list that is listed in my description box. It's all great. So I need this, fingers crossed and toes crossed, everything crossed, that it sets up. So I left this for about an hour. And so far, so good. I gave it a tap. I was like, please, please don't be soft. Let me have mixed it up well. And I'm actually pleasantly surprised at how easily this... I don't know why I was thinking it was going to be difficult to unmold, but check that out. Isn't that lovely? I've had this mold for ages. I think I bought it back in probably October or November and I just haven't gotten around to using it. I got this one from Amazon. I have linked it in the description box below. I'm aware you can get them from places like Temu as well. But I think it might be a little bit different, the actual mould. So it might not be as soft. So maybe that's why I'm getting it out good, but that's come out lovely. Got a few tiny little bubbles here and there and you can't really see them, and that's easily sorted out by using a little sander, one of the little sander tools, but there's no need for you to see that because they're so minuscule. It's just me personally that wanted to sort them. So this I actually left the mould sitting on a rack, an airing rack, for about 2 days, just to make absolutely sure that it was good. I've got my colours on my tile and I'm going to be starting off with the darker. I've said before, I like working, as you should do with acrylics, I like going from dark to light. So in the layers sense, I'm using burnt sienna and just added some Mars Black for our first coat. I've sped it up a little bit because I do take a little while doing this because it is having to be careful. I don't want to be getting paint everywhere. It's not a loss if you do get it in some parts because you can just dry it and go over it again, but I was doing my best not to make extra work for myself. I'm not too worried about the embellishments on the spine of the book because once this is all done and dried, it's gonna get I'm gonna be putting gold on just to fall into that space. I'm not going to be painting the bottom of this trinket box. Once the paint and it's all finished, I'm still going to give it a good couple of days, and then I'm very likely going to be putting some felt on the bottom of it so it doesn't mark or, you know, it's not too noisy on dressing tables. I am also drying in between, so when you do see edits, that's because I've allowed the paint to actually dry, rather than, you know, it's easier. It's just easier that way. I do occasionally use my hair dryer, and I make sure I use it on the cooler setting. Because you don't want to be causing any colour shift. That's just a case that if you start painting and it's not actually dried underneath, you can end up shifting your colours and making a mess. The paint can come up off of the canvas, so to speak. So just being wary of that. I'm making sure I'm going round all the sides as well, but the actual bottom, the inside of it, that will get painted just black once I'm all done. So those have had their first coats, and I'm just going to give the bottom part its a darker layer as well. I don't want the trinket box to be looking all like one-dimensional. I want it to look like it could be a real book that could be sitting on a bookshelf. And you saw my version, not my version, but my book of the Neverending Story. I don't even recall where I bought it, or well, I wouldn't have bought it. My parents bought it for me. That's how long I've had it. It was, you know, a book they got me when I was probably around 9 or 10, big reader as a small child. I always wanted a copy of the Neverending Story that actually looked like, you know, the book in the film with the Auryn on it. I still have never got round to getting myself one, but having this is going, it's not going on my dressing table upstairs where only I ever sit. It's going to be downstairs on my shelf, and I'm going to be storing, I'm going to be putting anything I wear, rings, necklaces or anything like that in there, and it's just going to look awesome. So I could have just painted using my go-to to start off the idea of a white is usually phthalo blue and white, and then I work my way up. My first thought was I want the pages to look old because they're not sparkly white, not in the film and not described as in the book. And my book is very yellowed now because of the age of it. So I thought I'd start off with the burnt sienna and cadmium yellow and build up a little bit, but yeah, we'll see how it goes anyway. But this at least gives us a darker tone and on the white for giving us a little bit of shadow. But it probably would have been a better idea just to have gone straight for even just putting black straight in there, or even the Mars black with the burnt sienna, and then continuing, you know, layering lighter colours on top. But it's all fine, it works out. It is a bit more difficult with the Eco Pour, that if you do happen to get a little bit of paint somewhere where you don't want it, it's not so easy to wipe away. When I'm painting on canvas, for instance, if I make a little mistake with my acrylic paint, I can quickly get a clean brush with some water on it and, you know, basically erase my mistake if I work quickly enough. But with the Eco Pour, it's not as simple as that. So be wary of that if you are new to using this kind of medium. I do highly recommend it though. I know you can colour this stuff and all, but the thought of being able to cast a mould and then paint it it appeals to me because I love painting. Obviously, if you do make a mistake or get paint where you don't actually want it, the best thing you can do is dry it or allow it to dry and then just go over it again. It is that simple. It's just a little bit of patience. So I'm going into the lighter colour now. So I've introduced the cadmium red cadmium yellow and the burnt sienna. Now, I do go back and forth a little bit, finding the tone that I really like. To me, when I've looked at pictures of the Neverending Story, it looks like a terracotta, like a dirty orange, and I just wanted to obviously get that with this book, with this trinket box. And I want to have, like, here and there, I want to have more of a brighter spot, because, you know, it might be the corner of the book, edging and stuff like that. And I'm happy, you know, it's little wear and tear to it as well, perhaps. So, yeah. So this is me just going around and lightening it up. And you can see there on the tile that I am going back and forth a few times. And it is important to remember as well that acrylic paint dries darker. So whatever you put down, once it's dry, it's going to be darker again. So bear that in mind. I am making sure as well to get those edges. A lot of people do forget to do that kind of thing, so it's good. Right then, this has another dry, and I nearly forgot I should have been recording. So you caught me halfway through the lid. So we're going again with our lighter, and you can see it starting to come alive a bit more with colour. So I'm a lot happier with this tone. Yeah, you can probably buy and use an orange. I do have a cadmium orange, but it is too bright. And yes, I could also tone it down, but where's the fun in that when you could make your own colours with a few different colours? So that's why I just went about it this way. And if, you know, the lovely thing about the acrylics is if you put it on and you're like, oh my goodness, that is way too bright, you can just go back into your mix. Your mixes are there, they're sitting there on that tile, and you can go back and add a bit more perhaps of your burnt sienna, or even dip in a titchy little tip into the black just to tone it down and bring it back a little bit. And if you're finding that, you know, you're not getting enough motion with your brush, just add a titchy bit of water to your mix, you know, and that'll help with the flow. And you can also use the extenders. I like to use the golden glazing liquid, and that's another option as well. And it gives you a bit longer for drying time, so you got a little bit more time for, you know, mixing colours directly on. So what's your favourite book? I'm aware that it can be a difficult question. It can be a difficult question to answer, because you discover, but you're going to discover books all through your life. I've still got the Magic Faraway Tree that my parents bought me. I believe they used to write, whenever they buy me a book, they would write inside the cover. And I've still actually got my Magic Faraway Tree adventures. And it says in there, you know, Merry Christmas. I think it says like something like 1988, love Mum and Dad, which I think is, and I love that I still have that book. You know, so I know obviously it can change, and you can have favourite books from different, you know, from times over the years. You know, I particularly love, as much as the controversy with a particular author, I still love the Harry Potter books. I can't help it. I still do love them. But every year I read The Lord of the Rings. It is my favourite book series, and it's probably my favourite film trilogy as well. We won't talk about The Hobbit, but The Hobbit is an awesome book. And then Little Women. Little Women is one of my favourite books. And then I do actually quite like Jo's Boys as well. So, you know, that was like the sequel to Little Women. You know, I love reading. I love reading things like, you know, Persuasion, Pride and Prejudice. I love all those books. I love every single one of them, and I have them all. And then at the other end, you know, I love the books like Merlin and stuff like that. So yeah, it's great to talk to people, isn't it, about books, when you do find your people and you're able to chat about stuff like that. But I do tend to prefer listening now these days, because it keeps my mind. I'm able to concentrate better if it's an audible, and I used to read like 2 to 3 books at a time. I think it is a trait of my ADHD, but these days the audible keeps me more encapsulated, and I can like stay on one at a time. And I especially love listening to them whilst I'm working in the studio, which is great. Right, I'm getting away. I'm just chatting here, aren't I? So I'm just adding a mixture of titanium white and phthalo blue. This is just to give us more of the shadow of the book, and then we can build up, and as that dries we can add less of the phthalo blue until it's just the titanium white. It's disappeared. Where did it go? I wasn't paying attention. What did I do? Where did it go? I can't even remember what I'm doing at this moment. Have I actually gone off screen a little bit and I did not realise? Impatience. I couldn't actually remember what I was doing at that moment, but evidently I was using my hairdryer and I had it closer to my body because I was afraid of dropping it. So as I said earlier, you make sure that you put your hairdryer on the cooler setting. So I'm going into a lighter tone now to add more of the like the light hitting the book, but we're still keeping those darker undertones there. Also, well, I've downsized my brush now to a smaller angled brush, just to make sure that, you know, where I've gone over with the white, I've managed to catch some of the part of the book corners, and I just want to make sure that that is nice and tidy. So that's, I like that. That's looking good to me. And that's all done. I'm happy with the colour on the lid. And now I'm going to be looking at doing the gold effect into the spine, to those embellishments, I think that's the word, in the spine of it. And again, you saw I'd already done the bottom. I'd completely forgot to hit the record button, but I remembered quite quickly. So I've never done this before with, it was basically like a ceramic. So rather than waiting, I made sure that I wiped the excess paint off straight away, because I think it would have just stayed there. I wouldn't have been able just to wipe it away, you know, like if it was on a epoxy resin piece. So I'm really pleased with that, actually. That is a gold iridescent heavy body paint that I used from Golden. And again, just because I managed to get the some of the paint over this side, I'm just tidying it up. And I didn't see the point in recording it, but I've painted the inside black just so that it looks nice and finished. And of course this project as well will get a spray of varnish. I don't want it to be glossy because books aren't glossy unless it's like, you know, an actual cover type thing. So I found this Auryn on Etsy. No, Temu. I tell a lie. Temu. It came in silver. I did order the mixed one, but it came as the full silver. So I used my chrome marker just to colour in the one snake, so it's more in, you know, more in line with the actual Auryn. These also came from Temu, but I cannot find the actual link for it. No, they're not. It's not going to be exact to the actual design of the Neverending Story book, because this I can't find an actual book mould that is like the size of a book. So artistic license, I'm quite happy doing it like this. And and in the same note, I am not going to be adding the words the Neverending Story to the, because the idea is there. We've got the Auryn there, and if you are a book fan or a movie fan, I guess, but you know, you're gonna know what it is simply from the Auryn. I tried snipping these book corners a little bit so that they were smaller, but they just didn't look right. So I made the executive decision, do you know what, it works for me, and I'm really pleased with it. And I'm just using E6000. I dislike using glue very, very much. I find it messy and I find it sticky. But I also figured that using a glue gun wasn't a good idea because they're just incredibly messy. And these are too fine. You know, the detail in these little corners are too fine, and it'll just make a big old mess. And all the webs, the glue stick webs, they're a pain in the bottom. So happy using just the E6000. And it doesn't take too long to dry either. It does say 24 hours, but you know, it's not too bad setting up. So just putting some glue on the Auryn, and I did make sure as well that the chrome marker had dried. That stuff does take a little bit longer. You could use paint if you don't have it, but the chrome markers work really well, I've got to be fair. So there it is. The Auryn is in place, and I sat back and I was really, really pleased. I just am. You get to a certain point when you're doing a project like this and you're like, this isn't working, you know, because you're blocking in, you're doing colours, and you hit a point and you're like, it's not working. But it did, and I'm blown away. So there's Falcor. I've got my beautiful trinket box. I hope you enjoyed watching. Please do check out anybody else in the collaboration list. Thank you for watching. Love you and stay weird.
Full of colors and swirls, Nerd Goblin art draws a magic worlds, with foxes that prance and badgers that dance, a whirlwind of dreams with a single glance. Gerald the alligator grins so wide, in enchanted waters he loves to hide. Dragons breathe wonder with flames so bright, each creature born from a magic night. Nerd Goblin paints life in every brush, animals frolic in a vibrant rush. From canvases to tales they leap, in a realm where fantasy meets deep. swift tail